Mrs. Crawford, your mother's condition is critical. We need to operate immediately. The doctor's urgent words echoed through the stark, sterile corridor of the hospital. My fingers tightened around my phone as I dialed Douglas for the sixth time, my heart pounding. When he finally picked up, his tone was sharp with irritation. "What is it now, Virginia?" "I'm in the middle of an important meeting," he snapped, his usual coldness slicing through me like a blade. I swallowed hard. "Mom is being rushed into emergency surgery. I need you here." My voice wavered, desperation slipping through. Overhead, the fluorescent lights buzzed faintly as silence stretched between us. Then, with a dismissive tone, he responded, "Sorry, I can't. Something big is happening for me right now, just handle it yourself." And just like that, he hung up. At that moment, sitting in St. Luke's Hospital in Birmingham, I finally admitted the truth I had been avoiding for too long: my marriage was beyond saving. I was 47 years old, and my husband had abandoned me in a time of crisis without a second thought. As I watched the nurses wheel my mother toward the ICU, a wave of memories washed over me. I could almost smell the roses from her beloved garden, their fragrance drifting through the open windows of our family's grand Victorian estate. I could hear my father's warm laughter echoing through its ornately carved hallways. That house had been in our family for 4 generations, a living testament to our history. When my father passed away 3 years ago, my mother and I had inherited it together. Every creaking floorboard, every carefully preserved detail, carried the weight of our family's legacy. Douglas used to understand that, or at least I had believed he did. In the early years of our marriage, he would spend weekends in the garden, helping my mother with her prized roses. But over time, his warmth faded, replaced by an icy detachment. Sitting alone in the ICU waiting room, my phone buzzed. A text from Douglas. "Secured my future. Just sold the estate. Leaving for Brazil tonight with someone who actually makes me happy. Goodbye." A strange, unexpected calm settled over me as I read his words. He thought he had blindsided me. He had no idea I had been watching his every move for months. My private investigator had kept me well informed: his affair with his young secretary, his shady financial dealings, and his secret plans to escape the country. I typed a single word in response: fascinating. Looking through the glass at my mother's fragile form in the ICU, something inside me hardened. Douglas had no idea what was coming. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't chasing after someone, it's letting them walk right into the trap they set for themselves. Douglas hadn't always been this way. When we met at a charity gala in Birmingham 15 years ago, he was different, kind, ambitious, and seemingly devoted. Back then, he was just a junior partner at a law firm, his eyes lighting up whenever he talked about helping his clients. He would sit for hours with my father, discussing estate management over cups of coffee, eager to understand the weight of our family's legacy. That Victorian estate was never just a house, it was the heart of our family. Built in 1887 by my great-grandfather, it had witnessed every Christmas, every celebration, and every quiet Sunday afternoon filled with laughter and love. I could still see my grandmother in the library, nestled in her favorite chair, sharing stories of our ancestors. "Family isn't just about blood, Virginia," she used to say, wisdom shining in her eyes. "It's about trust. Protecting what truly matters." The changes in Douglas had crept in slowly. Around 5 years ago, he started working late, staying out longer, becoming more distant. After my father's passing, he became fixated on financial control, questioning every decision I made regarding the estate. Then, small things began disappearing: antique heirlooms, valuable jewelry, items he casually dismissed as being appraised. 2 months ago, while going through his email, I found receipts for a luxury condo in Rio de Janeiro. That was the moment I knew for certain I was living with a liar. I hired Juliana, a private investigator, to uncover the truth. "Your husband has been meeting with potential buyers," she told me just last week. "He's been using forged documents to claim full ownership of the estate." The irony of it all almost made me laugh, if it hadn't hurt so much. Douglas had spent years scheming, believing he could manipulate his way into controlling my family's home. What he never realized was that my grandmother had been far wiser than he ever gave her credit for. Long before Douglas entered our lives, she had placed the estate in an irrevocable trust, ensuring that no one, not even my husband, could ever sell it. My phone vibrated with another message from Douglas. "You'll thank me when you see how much I got for that old house. Time to move on." I slid my phone into my bag, my fingers brushing against the worn leather cover of my grandmother's diary. Inside those pages lay the truth, the very thing that would dismantle Douglas' entire scheme. As the night deepened, the ICU waiting room felt colder. My mother's surgery was taking longer than expected, and the weight of uncertainty pressed against my chest. That's when my phone rang. It was Juliana. Her voice was tense. "Virginia, I have something you need to see right away." I accessed my email, my fingers trembling as I opened the attachment Juliana had sent. The images on my screen made my stomach churn, photo after photo of Douglas dining at upscale restaurants, always in the company of his young secretary, Angela. They were seen browsing expensive jewelry at Tiffany's and touring elite real estate offices. But what truly made my blood run cold were the documents captured in some of the images. Juliana's message confirmed my worst fears. "He's been siphoning funds from your personal accounts for months." The estate sale, she explained, was merely the final step in his grand scheme. Most of my liquid assets had already been funneled into offshore accounts. Heart pounding, I opened my banking app. The numbers on the screen were a brutal confirmation of the truth. My personal account had dwindled to a mere $842. Our joint account? Completely drained. Tears welled up as I realized the depth of his betrayal. He had been planning this meticulously, perhaps for years. A new message from Douglas interrupted my thoughts. "By the way, I took care of those old photo albums in the library. No one needs that sentimental junk. The buyers want the house cleared by next week." I felt sick. Those albums weren't just old books gathering dust, they were irreplaceable. My mother's memories, pieces of our family's history spanning generations. Then, my phone screen flickered to life with a live security feed from the estate. There they were, Douglas and Angela, packing boxes into his car, laughing, toasting with champagne. They were celebrating their victory in my childhood home, all while my mother lay in surgery, fighting for her life. Juliana's voice broke through the haze of my anger. "Virginia, there's more." My breath caught in my throat as she continued. "He's booked 2 first-class tickets to Rio de Janeiro tonight. And he's been recording your phone calls with the hospital. He wanted to be certain your mother was too sick to interfere with the sale." It wasn't just financial theft. Douglas had been waiting for my mother to be at her weakest, orchestrating this entire plan while I was too distracted by her illness to notice. He thought he had outmaneuvered me. At that moment, a doctor appeared in the doorway. "Mrs. Crawford, your mother is stable. The surgery was successful, but she'll require extensive care during recovery." Relief flooded me. I clutched my grandmother's diary closer, feeling the hidden papers tucked inside, the very documents that would ensure Douglas's downfall. He believed he had covered every angle, but he had no idea what was coming. Revenge isn't just about winning. Sometimes, it's about watching your enemy lose everything they thought they had secured. Taking a steadying breath, I dialed a number. "Mr. Reynolds, this is Virginia Crawford. I understand you're the buyer Douglas arranged for our estate." His voice was polite, pleased even. Yes, Mrs. Crawford. Your husband mentioned you'd be calling to finalize the details. I must say, $3.2 million is a steal for such a beautiful property." I kept my voice even. "And you've already transferred the funds?" "Yes, just this morning." Your husband was quite insistent on immediate payment. He said something about an investment opportunity in Brazil that couldn't wait. A grim smile crossed my lips. "Mr. Reynolds, I strongly suggest you contact your bank immediately and stop that transfer. Douglas doesn't actually have the authority to sell the estate." A long silence. Then, a sharp inhale. "I'm sorry, what?" "The property is in an irrevocable trust. Any sale without proper authorization from the trust administrator is fraudulent." The weight of my words sank in, and I could hear the panic creeping into his voice. "That would make you an unwitting participant in real estate fraud." As he stammered, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Douglas. Just dropped off the final paperwork with the buyers. You should be grateful. I got us a great deal. Heading to the airport now with my real future. My grip tightened on the phone. Mr. Reynolds, I continued, check your purchase agreement carefully. I suspect you'll find some irregularities. My husband has a talent for manipulating paperwork when it suits him. At that moment, Juliana slipped into the hospital room, her expression confirming what I already knew. She handed me a folder containing copies of the trust documents and bank statements, irrefutable proof of Douglas's months-long deception. Mr. Reynolds's voice now held a distinct edge of panic. Mrs. Crawford, I just reviewed the documentation. These signatures, they don't match the county records. No, they wouldn't, I responded calmly. You should contact your attorney immediately. The FBI is already involved, and they will want to discuss your role in this transaction. As if on cue, my phone rang. Agent Sarah Martinez. We're in position at the airport, she reported. Your husband just checked in for his flight to Rio. He's with a woman who matches Angela's description. I exhaled slowly, watching as Juliana set up her laptop, monitoring the security feeds. Perfect timing, I murmured. He has no idea the trust administrator is waiting for him at the gate. Another message from Douglas appeared on my screen. Boarding soon. You'll never find us where we're going. Enjoy your meaningless existence in that rundown house. I didn't waste my breath on a reply. Instead, I quietly opened my grandmother's diary, retrieving the one document that would seal Douglas's downfall, the original trust agreement. Its terms were unmistakably clear, outlining strict conditions for property transfers and fraud prevention. Across the room, Juliana glanced up from her laptop, a pleased smirk playing on her lips. Airport security just flagged their passports. Wanna watch how this plays out? Her screen displayed a live airport security feed as Douglas and Angela strolled toward the international terminal. They walked with an air of confidence, almost smug, their coordinated designer luggage rolling smoothly behind them. My stomach tightened when I spotted the sapphire necklace around Angela's neck, my mother's necklace. A treasured family heirloom passed down for generations. Just then, my phone crackled to life. Agent Martinez's voice was urgent. Mrs. Crawford, we've uncovered something serious. Your husband's crimes go beyond forging estate documents. He's been orchestrating a far-reaching scheme, targeting multiple properties and vulnerable elderly victims. My grip tightened on the hospital bed's rail as she continued. We've identified at least 6 cases where he preyed on families in medical crises. While the homeowners were hospitalized, he forged power of attorney documents, transferring their assets without their knowledge. The weight of the revelation hit me hard. The late nights at his office, the secretive client meetings, it had never been about business growth. He had spent years perfecting this operation. I thought about the families whose homes he had stolen, the lives he had upended. There's more, Juliana interjected, her eyes locked on her screen. I've followed the money trail. Angela isn't just a mistress, she's been in on it from the start. She works for a shell company that launders money from these fraudulent property deals. On the security feed, Douglas approached the gate, clad in the tailored suit I had gifted him for our anniversary. It was probably the last thing I had ever given him. Angela clung to his arm, laughing at something he had said, utterly unaware of what was about to unfold. Then, in an instant, the situation erupted. 2 FBI agents in suits approached from one side, while Mr. Harrison, the trust administrator, arrived from the opposite direction, flanked by airport security. Douglas's expression shifted rapidly: confusion, then shock, then fury. His voice rang out over Juliana's audio feed. You don't understand. My wife authorized the sale. I have the paperwork to prove it. Forged paperwork, Mr. Harrison corrected firmly. The Crawford estate has been in an irrevocable trust for over 2 decades. Even if your wife wanted to sell, she legally couldn't. I watched as Douglas's face drained of color. He had realized his mistake. But instead of accepting defeat, he acted on impulse, shoving Angela toward the agents before making a desperate run for it. He barely made it 10 steps before security took him down. As he hit the floor, something small skittered across the polished surface. My breath caught. It was my mother's antique bracelet. I hadn't even realized it was missing. Virginia, Juliana's voice cut through my thoughts, tense with urgency. Douglas just tried to move another $500,000 from your mother's account. If I hadn't frozen it yesterday. Before I could react, my phone vibrated with a new message from Douglas. You think you're so smart? Check your mother's medical insurance. Oops. A chill ran through me. Without hesitation, I called the hospital billing department. My worst fear was confirmed. Douglas had canceled my mother's insurance policy the previous week, citing financial concerns. The surgery she had just undergone would leave us with an overwhelming medical bill. It was all part of his plan. He had intended to have my mother hospitalized with no coverage, drain our accounts, sell the estate, and vanish with the money, leaving me drowning in debt. But he had underestimated me. 3 months ago, when Juliana had first flagged his suspicious behavior, I had already moved my mother onto my own insurance policy. He had set the trap, but I had already closed the door before he even saw it coming. As Douglas was led away in handcuffs on Juliana's screen, Agent Martinez burst into my mother's hospital room, her face pale with urgency. Mrs. Crawford, we have to act fast. Your husband's phone records show that he contacted a demolition company yesterday. They're scheduled to begin work on the estate first thing tomorrow morning. My heart pounded. The estate wasn't just our family home. It held critical evidence of Douglas's fraudulent activities. Just last week, I had stumbled upon a hidden safe in his study, though I hadn't yet been able to crack it open. He's trying to destroy everything, Juliana muttered, already making a call. That safe might contain records of his other victims. Agent Martinez's expression darkened. There's another problem. Angela is missing. She vanished in the chaos of Douglas's arrest, and she still has full access to all your banking details. Taking a deep breath, I reached into my grandmother's diary and carefully retrieved a tiny key tucked into its spine. My grandmother didn't just establish the trust, I explained. She installed a top-of-the-line security system throughout the estate. Every room is monitored, every document safeguarded. Angela had no way of bypassing the estate's security without setting off silent alarms. At that very moment, Juliana's laptop emitted a notification. The surveillance footage displayed Angela slipping through a window, entering Douglas' study. She moved swiftly, her target unmistakable, the safe. Should we dispatch officers? Agent Martinez inquired, her hand already reaching for her radio. Not yet, I replied, observing Angela as she began entering the safe's combination. My grandmother installed an additional safeguard. Any unauthorized attempt to access the safe. On the screen, Angela pulled the safe door open, her expression victorious. However, within seconds, both the study door and the safe locked simultaneously, trapping her inside. A faint mist dispersed from concealed vents, harmless in nature, but infused with an invisible UV dye, one that would cling to her skin and clothing for weeks. I leaned back and smirked. There's no need to rush. She's not going anywhere. And now, she's covered in undeniable proof of attempted theft. Just then, my phone rang. It was Mr. Reynolds, the buyer who had initially shown interest in the estate. Mrs. Crawford, I just uncovered something troubling. Douglas had plans to demolish the estate and replace it with luxury condos. He even showed me fabricated environmental reports claiming the structure was unsound. I've already contacted my bank to halt all transactions. Thank you for letting me know, Mr. Reynolds. You should also be aware that the demolition company he hired is nothing more than another shell corporation. They would have taken your money and vanished without a trace. Agent Martinez, who had been on a separate call, turned toward me. The FBI just recovered Douglas' laptop. It contains extensive records detailing a scheme targeting affluent families with elderly or ailing relatives across 3 states. He was preparing to expand his operation significantly. I glanced at my mother, still peacefully resting, then shifted my focus back to the security feed, where Angela was now pounding frantically on the locked study door. My grandmother always warned that greed had a way of consuming itself. Douglas never grasped that the estate's true value wasn't in its monetary worth, it lay in the protections she had embedded into its very foundation. Suddenly, Juliana's laptop emitted another urgent ping. Her expression turned grave. "Virginia, you need to see this." She angled her screen toward me, revealing what appeared to be financial transfer confirmations. "Douglas set up automated withdrawals from your mother's retirement accounts. They're scheduled to activate at midnight. He's attempting to drain the funds before the banks can freeze his assets." I exhaled, recalling a visit I'd made 3 months earlier to my grandmother's longtime friend at the trust company. I tapped a few buttons on my phone's banking app and smiled. Let him try. I already transferred everything into new accounts protected by the trust. He's about to move non-existent funds, essentially incriminating himself even further. On the security feed, officers entered the study where Angela remained trapped. In a desperate attempt to destroy incriminating documents from the safe, she had unknowingly exposed her hands to the UV light, now glowing in a vivid purple hue. "Mrs. Crawford," Agent Martinez called, flipping through the confiscated documents. "This isn't just about your estate." Douglas compiled extensive records detailing a far-reaching scheme that targeted numerous families. He's facing multiple charges of fraud, theft, and conspiracy. My mother stirred, her eyes fluttering open. I reached for her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. "Everything's fine now, Mom. The estate is safe." Grandmother's plan worked exactly as she intended. With a faint but knowing smile, my mother whispered, "Of course it did. Your grandmother always believed the best trap is the one people walk into willingly." Agent Martinez's phone buzzed with another update. They found Douglas's emergency escape bag in his car. It contained multiple passports, stacks of cash, and she held up a document, her eyes sharp with recognition, your grandmother's original will. He believed he had the only copy. I reached for my grandmother's diary and carefully removed a well-preserved document. "No," I said with a calm certainty. "He only had what we wanted him to find." 2 weeks later, I sat in the courthouse, watching Douglas and Angela as they stood before the judge. Their designer clothing and smug confidence had vanished, replaced with prison uniforms and expressions of sheer defeat. The prosecutor methodically read aloud a staggering list, 37 charges, including fraud, conspiracy, and attempted theft. Douglas's lawyer attempted a weak defense. "Your Honor, my client was merely trying to ensure his wife's financial security." The prosecutor barely glanced up before presenting a thick folder. "That's not what the evidence indicates. We have documented proof that Mr. Crawford targeted multiple families during times of medical distress, orchestrating elaborate fraud schemes to strip them of their homes. The UV-marked documents retrieved from his safe outline every crime in detail." I thought of the other victims, 12 families who had nearly lost everything to Douglas's deception. Thanks to the meticulous evidence we had gathered, justice would finally be served. The judge set bail at $5 million each. With no means to pay, Douglas and Angela were remanded into custody. As they were escorted from the courtroom, Douglas turned and shot me a glare filled with bitterness. I simply met his gaze with a quiet smile and patted my grandmother's diary. He had never understood that true wealth wasn't measured in money. It lay in family, legacy, and the unshakable strength of protecting what truly mattered. At the estate, my mother was steadily recovering in her childhood room, surrounded by cherished family photographs and carefully preserved heirlooms. Outside, the garden she had always adored was once again in full bloom, filling the air with life and warmth. The house, once shrouded in uncertainty, now felt vibrant and whole once more. Seated in my grandmother's beloved chair in the library, I could almost feel her presence, her wisdom lingering in the quiet corners of the room. In that moment, I realized that true victory isn't always about winning battles. Sometimes it lies in safeguarding what truly matters, while allowing greed to be its own downfall.